Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining as we wait for people to trickle in. Feel free to include in the chat where you are calling from and degree programs you are considering applying to, master's, PhD, what field of study. I'd love to learn more about where everyone is headed for thinking about for grad school applications and where you are located. And yes, the event is being recorded. So if you can't stay for the full hour or want to refer back to the recording later on, you will have a copy of it. From Canada. Yay. Master's, PhD, perfect. California. Perfect. Chicago, perfect. Someone is going to be applying to schools in Australia, UK. LA. So for people joining, just joining in, if you want to just include in the chat where you're calling from and degree programs you are thinking of applying to. Perfect. We'll get started in a minute just as more people are signing in. But the talk is being recorded, and so we'll be sending out the recording in the next 2 days. Hello, hello from Pakistan, Boston, Florida. Pennsylvania, North Carolina. Perfect. Okay. A lot of great programs. Hello from Mexico. More people from Canada, San Diego. I lived in San Diego for quite some time. Beautiful city. Great. Okay. I'll just give it one more minute. Perfect. Okay, great. Lots of activity in the chat. Well, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for joining me today as we talk about your graduate school applications and specifically about the statement of purpose. My name is Debbie, and I'll just tell you a bit about myself, where I got started. I've been working in graduate admissions for almost 20 years now. I started working in graduate admissions at Stanford University. I worked at Stanford for 10 years. I worked in different capacities in graduate admissions. I started working in their registrar's office. I worked in their school of education and their school of engineering. Part of the work I did at Stanford is I was a senior staff member, helping to read applications for master's and PhD programs, working alongside admissions committee members. So I read a lot of applications while I was there. And so for the past 10 years, I've been working as a graduate admissions coach And so working alongside people from all over the world, helping them apply to graduate school. So applying to master's programs, PhD programs. I've also worked alongside researchers at Stanford and UT Austin, and also work a lot with DEI groups to increase representation in different areas of sciences. So that's a bit about my background. And just for the time, we'll just keep going. So the agenda today, primarily, we are going to talk about the statement of purpose. Before we get to the statement of purpose, I do like to talk a bit about what things you need to prepare for, have handy before you are ready to start writing the statement of purpose. A lot of people I start working with want to start working on their essays right away, and I love the eagerness, but there are also some things that I love to have information on. I think is important for you to also be clear on what are the application materials that are required to apply to graduate school. Having an understanding of who reads applications is also helpful to understanding the tone and your narrative in writing your essay. And then we're going to dive into the different sections of the statement of purpose and talk about how to stand out. Like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, this is going to be recorded, and you will be receiving the recording in the next 2 days. And so, but feel free to take notes throughout the talk. I do have reflection exercises. And so have paper, pen handy, anything to write down if you wanted to take some notes and start answering those reflection exercises. After the presentation, I will leave time for people to ask questions. And so you can ask questions in chat, raise your hand, and we'll be able to get to the questions at the end of the presentation. And know that as I'm giving the talk, it is okay for you to not know how to answer some questions. Everyone is at a different stage of this process of writing their essays, or even if you're starting to think about graduate school, you might not have all of the answers. And so hopefully after this talk, you'll have a better sense of the direction you want to take with your applications. And so know that it's okay if you don't have all the answers right away. So the first reflection exercise, what I usually like to do when I start working with someone is ask them, why do you want a graduate degree? Again, when you are applying to graduate school, you are seeking a specialized degree, either through research or more of a practical degree to become an expert in a field of study. And so what are your specific reasons for wanting an advanced degree? Are you wanting to, again, gain specific skills and knowledge in an area of study? Do you need a graduate degree to meet your career goals? Are you trying to pivot to a new field? Again, everyone's reasons for wanting a degree are going to be different. And so understanding where you fall into your reasons is also an important part of starting this process. Will a graduate degree meet your learning goals and career goals that you've set for yourself, right? So looking at the classes you might take, the research opportunities within a graduate degree. What are some things that are important to you in a grad program? Thinking about what you like, maybe what you're good at. Those are all things that can help you think about your graduate school applications and also what you want to communicate in your statement of purpose. Now, for anyone who started looking at grad school options, if you do a quick Google search, you'll probably be flooded with a lot of different information in terms of the different master's programs that are available. doctoral programs that are available. And then the length requirement also will vary based on the degree that you are considering. And here I've summarized, as you're looking at graduate school, what are some things that are important to you in finding a graduate program? First and foremost, obviously the curriculum is going to be very important. If you're looking to apply to graduate school in the US, so if you're applying for a Master's of Art or a Master's of Science, for example, most programs in the US are course-based. What that means is that to meet the requirements of a master's degree, you need to complete coursework. Some programs will have a thesis requirement, others might not. So what are some things that are important to you? If you're looking at a master's program, for example, in the UK, where a lot of the master's programs are master's research programs versus a master's taught program. And so understanding the differences in the curriculum based on maybe the country you're applying to is also an important factor in deciding what schools you want to apply to. And those are things that I can support you with in terms of understanding the different requirements, application requirements, but also the program requirements that you're considering. Other things to consider, if you are looking at a research degree, specifically, if you're looking at a doctoral program, looking for faculty advisor, that is definitely an important thing to consider. And we can talk more about, if you're applying to a PhD versus a master's program, some of the differences in your statement of purpose. Length of program, very important part. A lot of people come to me wanting a master's degree that might be 2-year-long programs. So a lot of master's programs are 2-year-long programs. Some master's programs are 9-month-long programs. So is that a factor that you want to consider in your program? The ranking of the program. Ranking in graduate school is usually done at the department level. And so thinking about all of those factors in creating your list of schools and deciding where you want to apply to graduate school. Format, another important one. Are you looking to go in person versus maybe online program? So there's a lot to think about when you are creating your list of schools. Creating a list of schools is really the foundation of starting this process when you're applying to graduate school. Once you have a sense of the schools and programs you're applying to, then it's much more, it's easier for you to then start to look at the application materials and specifically your statement of purpose. So this page is really just the foundation of starting to think about graduate school, the program, degree type, and other considerations that you want to think about as you're solidifying your list of schools. This page I have is, so inside the graduate admissions office. So who reads applications? So the who, when, where, how, why, and what. And so this is an important thing to understand. Who reads applications? So professors in the department you're applying to, and 1 or 2 senior staff members are going to read your application. So for example, when I was working in the School of Engineering at Stanford, I was a senior staff member in the electrical engineering department and read applications alongside professors who were part of the admissions committee. And so 2 or 3 people, sometimes 4 people, will read your application. And so knowing that most people who are reading your application are professors in the degree program you're applying to is an important thing to know, because you know that the tone of your essay is going to be academic in nature, right? So you want to make sure that you are writing your essay and using the vocabulary or technical terms of your chosen area. Applications are read once a year. Some programs will have admissions twice a year, but if you're applying to a PhD program, and most master's programs in the US will admit students once a year to start in the fall. So right now, if you are applying to graduate school this year to start in the fall of 2025, your applications are going to be due anytime in December, January, and sometimes February. And so every school you apply to will have their application deadlines that you're going to submit. Where? So applications are, every department at a university has their own admissions committee members. So if you're applying to chemical engineering, the chemical engineering department will have their admissions committees made up of professors in the department who are going to read your applications. So even though you're applying, let's say, to Stanford, you'll be submitting an online application form to Stanford University, and then your application is going to be sent to the department you're applying to, and that department will make admissions decisions on your application. And so why departments want to decide whom they're going to be admitting every year? They're looking for students who are well-rounded, and they also want to admit a diverse cohort. And that's going to be an important thing to remember in writing your statement of purpose. Because one of the things that I enjoy the most about graduate admissions is that it's not a cookie cutter process. And what that means is that admissions committees are not looking to admit the same type of student over and over again. They want students with different experiences, different interests, different goals, and that makes up the graduate cohort, the new students they're admitting. They want a diverse cohort. And then the application materials. So this is, the what. So statement of purpose, essays, standardized tests, resumes, CV, letters of recommendations. So every department you're applying to will have application requirements that they set. So it's really important to make sure that every school you're applying to, you understand what they require for admission to their program. So again, this is important information to have because applications are assessed by faculty members. You want to write your essay using technical terminology, vocabulary that's in your field of study. You want to demonstrate that you are able to engage, effectively communicate within an academic environment. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. And so as a reflection exercise, something that oftentimes when I meet with people and I ask them, can you describe in enough detail what you want to study in graduate school? Or maybe I'll ask them in maybe 3 or 4 sentences, can you write why you want a graduate degree? And so if that is a difficult thing to do, then it's important to make sure to really work toward being more specific about your goals for wanting a graduate degree. And all of that is going to help you when you're writing your statement of purpose. And so this is within the application requirements. The statement of purpose is what we are going to talk more about. And so most essays that are required, the length will vary. Some will want 2 pages single space, while others will want 500 words. And so, as I mentioned before, every school will have different application requirements, and it's important for you to understand those different requirements to make sure that you're submitting a statement of purpose that meets the requirements of the department you are applying to. Now, how to stand out. You're applying to graduate school. You are probably applying to maybe 8 schools, 10 schools. And so schools are receiving hundreds, sometimes thousands of applications. How do you stand out in your application? The statement of purpose is one of the most important parts of the review process. Yes, good grades are important. Standardized tests, if they are required, might serve a purpose. But ultimately, admissions committee members want to get to know you, the applicant. And because they don't have time to interview every single applicant, they use the statement of purpose to get to know you. And so this is primarily why I started doing consulting 10 years ago, is because I read so many applications when I was at Stanford of applicants I felt didn't really express in their statement of purpose how they wanted to fit into our department, what they wanted to do, in enough information that made me feel excited about their application and made me want to admit them. And so when I started doing consulting, a lot of what I started doing is really helping people with their statement of purpose, right? And so, so my next slide is, we'll definitely go through the different sections of the statement of purpose. So the introduction, obviously you're introducing yourself. Anything you write in the statement of purpose has to relate to the program you're applying to. And I can't stress that enough, because a lot of times the narrative or the story that people want to write about in their statement of purpose is the tone is, or the story is, doesn't really fit, right? And so you want to introduce yourself, your motivations for graduate study, your interests. You want it to be as specific as possible. Maybe you want to talk about what sparked your interest in an intended field of study. Why is applying to graduate school important to you? Remember some of the reflection exercises we started this talk with is, why do you want an advanced degree? Are you trying to solve, answer a question? Are you trying to pivot to a new area of study? So you want to really introduce yourself as it relates to this degree program that you're applying to. You want to establish a central theme. This is such an important thing. So your introduction is really sets the tone for the rest of your essay. So you establish a central theme that is going to articulate your motivation for pursuing a graduate degree in the academic field you're interested in, right? So you can introduce a question or a specific area of study that you want to explore. This is really going to be the focal point of your essay, because anything that you write after your introduction will relate to the central theme. And I have some examples for you. Okay, now I say this all the time, and this is what I do when I start reading essays. If I were to only read your introduction, you send me an essay, it's 2 pages, single spaced, and keep in mind that admissions committee members, they read maybe 100 essays every day, right? And so let's say I get your essay, I have already read 30 essays and I have 30 more essays to go, and I get to your essay. I want to feel excited by your application. I want to have an understanding of why you're applying to graduate school, right? So if I were only to read your introduction, what I expect is that I will have a clear understanding of the degree and program you're applying to, your area that you want to specialize, and your reasons for wanting an advanced degree. So do you have maybe a research question that you want to answer? I just want to know what the central theme of your application is going to be. And so I want to get a sense in your introduction of what is really sparking your interest. And so oftentimes, and I've seen this a lot when I was at Stanford, is example one, right? Very generic, very casual language. So very generic. I've always been fascinated by computers and how they work. I think it's really cool that we can use them to do many things. I want to learn more about computer science and maybe work in the tech industry someday. Okay. I'm interested in the master's program at your school because I've heard good things about it and think I could get a good job or start my own company one day. Okay. So if I read this example, now I know this person is applying to a master's in computer science. Computer science, for anyone who knows about computer science, and even if you don't know about computer science, you can imagine that computer science is very broad. It's, if you're interested in psychology and you say, I want to study psychology, there are probably over 50 different areas in psychology. So to me, this saying just a master's in computer science, I'm not quite sure what they want. They say program at your school. So this is probably an essay this person is just copy and pasting for every school they're applying to. So it's not specific to my school necessarily. I don't really get a sense of what's happening. So far, not something that has really grabbed my attention. Example two is something that I really want to read more about what this person wants to do, because right away they're talking about what they're passionate about. They're interested at the intersection of artificial intelligence and human behavior. And this is why they are seeking a master's degree in computer science at Stanford. Great. And then they write specifically what they want to do at the intersection of AI and HCI. And they are interested in improving accessibility for individuals with disabilities. Wow, there's a social cause here. So they're interested in computer science, applying it to a social cause. And so they end their introduction by saying, your program's rigorous coursework and hands-on research, I aim to contribute to the development of AI systems that are not only intelligent, but also inclusive. I want to keep reading this essay. This introduction to me is such a great hook. It allows me to get to know this applicant very quickly, what they want to study, and I know what to expect in the rest of the essay. So to me, this introduction really captures these points here. And notice that it's only a few sentences. So you don't need your introduction to be excessively long. It just needs to be to the point. And you can say all of this in just a few sentences. And so as someone who does consulting, I like to turn this type of introduction into this type of introduction. And so that's an example of how I work with students, but also something that as an admissions committee member, when I worked at Stanford, I really felt excited and wanted to read more about someone if they had an introduction like this. Okay. Body paragraphs. Now, the body paragraphs are really, again, thinking about example number 2, right? So we have someone who's interested in AI and HCI, and they're also interested in making, AI systems that are inclusive. So with that in mind, I expect the rest of the essay to follow this main theme that is the last sentence, right? So everything you mention in your body paragraphs should relate to what you mention as your central theme in your introduction. So you want to summarize your academic career or your work experience. And I often get this question, well, how is this different than what I already have in my resume? Why do I need to write an essay? And so your resume or your CV will have all of your experiences, but maybe not all of your experiences relate to what you want to do in graduate school. So what you want to include in your body paragraphs is what you're doing is you're taking bits, sections of your resume and developing those small sections of your resume. You're developing that into your narrative, right? So you are summarizing relevant academic work, research, experiences that relate to your central theme in your introduction, right? So you're not turning your resume into an essay. You're only taking the relevant information from your resume and highlighting that in your essay, right? So focus on specific experiences that have shaped your academic interests, solidified your decision to pursue a graduate degree, right? So if you are currently working in a research lab or doing an internship, maybe you're exposed to something that you want to pursue an education and really delve into a specific topic that you were exposed to during a research project or an internship, right? And explain how a graduate degree is going to help you achieve your goals. Again, you want to make sure that your central theme that you've described in your introduction relates to the goals that you've set for yourself in graduate school and after you graduate. Now, this is an example of body paragraphs. Again, they're not completely developed, but hopefully they give you an idea of what to write about. So after the introduction, oftentimes people are going to talk about their undergraduate studies. You're not going to talk about everything you did during college, but you might talk about the important parts of your undergraduate degree, right? So here a student at Tufts, for example, is talking about some of the classes that have really made a difference for them, right? Concepts and algorithms, data structures, programming languages. And then they might develop the paragraph by talking about a project they worked on that relates to AI, HCI, and again, developing an intelligent system that helps with their cause for diversity, inclusion, right? Another way to develop your body paragraphs is to talk about a specific experience. So here, one of the most significant experiences that solidified my decision to pursue a graduate degree was my involvement at my internship at X, Y, and Z, right? And so although you want to give context about the internship and what your role was, again, you want to go beyond what you have in your resume. You want to describe specific accomplishments, insights that you've gained, and how this experience relates to why you want an advanced degree, right? So through this experience, I've gained hands-on experience and deepened my understanding of AI or HCI and really ignited my passion for, again, here, we're tying it back to the central theme that you've identified in your introduction. So your introduction, so important. everything you mention after in your body paragraphs, if you talk about your undergraduate studies, if you talk about research, if you talk about internship, if you've been working for the past 5 years and now are wanting to go back to school, you want to pull the relevant information and connect the dots for admissions committee members, connect those experiences, what you decide to talk about, to your central theme in your introduction. So your body paragraphs are really, again, you're putting the puzzle together, connecting those dots to your reasons for wanting an advanced degree. Okay. And then there's the school-specific information. And this is, again, very important because this lets admissions committee members that you've actually been on their website, you understand what you're getting yourself into, basically. So if you're applying to Stanford's computer science department, this is where you would list specifically why you are applying to that school and the department. And so you want to write about specifically what area you're applying to, maybe classes you want to take, the area of specialization, right? Mention specific coursework or projects that you really want to delve into while you are in their program. One of the biggest mistakes that people make here is they're not specific enough, or again, they might use their essay for all of the schools they're applying to. So make sure to proofread your essay. Make sure that if the essay you're writing is about Stanford, you're not listing another school's name, right? Now, I know that maybe 70-75% of your essay you might be able to use at every school you're applying to, but it's really the, again, 25, 30% that is going to be specific to the school you're applying to. So really show them that you've went to the website, you understand the courses you are going to take, the projects you're going to work on. If you're applying to schools like Stanford, I read this all the time in essays. I'm applying to Stanford because computer science, it's ranked in the top 3 or the top 5. Admissions committees know the ranking of the school, of the program. Some people said, hey, it's in California, warm weather, I get to go to the beach. Don't write things like that. Really make it specific about the learning environment, the labs, the centers, the interdisciplinary format of the curriculum. Maybe you'll want to take classes in, if you're interested in computer science and human behavior, you'll be able to take classes in the psychology department. Write about those things that are specific to the school you're applying to. And your conclusion can be very brief, right? You're reaffirming your enthusiasm to contribute to the department, to joining a graduate degree program. Your conclusion can be very short. Again, you want to make sure that the bulk of your writing is in your body paragraphs and this school-specific information, which is really important. Now, I often get this question, what's the difference between a statement of purpose and a personal statement? Some schools will ask for a statement of purpose and a personal statement. And so the statement of purpose is the academic essay, right? So what we just talked about, the different components of the statement of purpose, that's, again, your academic essay. The personal statement is a different essay. And that's really, again, as the title implies, it's an essay that talks about you as a person. It doesn't necessarily, it's not necessarily an academic essay, right? So Here in a personal statement, they want you to talk more about maybe if you've had to overcome any adversity, if you're a first generation college student, if you are an underrepresented or minority student, if you've had any struggles in your education. This is where you can write about your story and how you've overcome those challenges. And you want to be mindful. Some departments will use the term statement of purpose and personal statement interchangeably. If they only ask for a personal statement, assume that it's the academic essay, right? So if you only need to submit one essay and they call it a personal statement, make it an academic essay, unless the prompt is specific and you need to cover the prompt, right? So those are the differences. Quick advice based on my experience, grad admissions decisions, it's not about finding the best applicant, right, by some objective standard. And what that means is when I was at Stanford reading applications, I didn't have a checklist of things that every student had to meet, right? So I often say my job at Stanford could have been very easy. I could have just gone through the list of applicants, admitted everyone with a 4.0 GPA, perfect GRE scores, and then be done. But it actually took us about 2 months, sometimes more, to review applications because all applications are read. Good grades are going to take you so far in this process. If in your statement of purpose, you are unable to articulate your reasons for wanting an advanced degree, or you're not showing admissions committees that what you're passionate about and again, how you are going to use the resources in their department to get the advanced degree, it's hard for admissions committees to, to select you as someone they want to admit. They want to admit people who bring different experiences, right? So some people might have just graduated from college, they've done some internships, they've worked on relevant projects. They'll admit students, from that category. But they'll also want to admit students who have work experience, right? So it's not a cookie cutter process. You want to make sure to put your best foot forward, and to do that is really through your statement of purpose. It's such an important part. I often get the question also from people who might not have a strong GPA. Should I still be applying to schools that are very competitive? If you have the experience, if you have, again, your narrative is strong, those are all things that I help people with in terms of figuring out the best fit universities. Oftentimes, GPA, if your GPA is lower, you can still be admitted to highly selective universities. If you have work experience, if you have a strong resume to show your capability of doing well in graduate school, that can really help you to stand out. So every circumstance is different, right? So what makes someone stand out is going to be very different from what makes another person stand out. People often ask me for sample statements, and I usually don't provide a sample essay of people who've been admitted to different schools, because what made them stand out, what make them a strong applicant, is going to be very different from what makes you a strong applicant. And that's the work that I do with people who are applying to graduate school, is helping you find what is going to make you stand out as an applicant. So don't try to write something that you think admissions committees want to read. Be authentic, right? Be yourself. And that's the important part. Be specific in what you write and what you want out of a grad school program. So that's the end of the presentation. I know it's a lot of information, but hopefully you were able to get some insights into what to write in your essay and how to best stand out. I know we have some time left, and so I'm happy to answer questions that people have. Let me just go to questions here. Okay. Lots and lots of questions. Great questions. Okay. Sorry. Let me just go to the top here. Let's see. Okay. So people are asking about my specific experience helping people in different areas of study. So I've worked with people who are applying to master's and PhD programs in most areas of social sciences, education, psychology, areas of biosciences as well. I've worked with a lot of people applying to the biosciences, biology, natural sciences, and some business programs. So the only areas that I don't specialize in are MBA, law school, and medical school. But other than that, I have worked with people applying to areas of engineering, natural sciences, social sciences, education, and biosciences. And then let's see here. Okay, what do you mean ranking is done at the department level? Yes, great question. So if you go on the US News and World Report or Forbes, a lot of different organizations will rank schools. And so when you're applying to, so they'll say, okay, Stanford University is in the top, top 3 or top 5 universities. When you're applying to graduate school, the ranking of the department is, so if you're looking at rankings for graduate school, so if you're looking at the psychology department at Stanford, the ranking is done based on the department and not the university name, but the department. Hopefully that. But usually if the university is highly ranked, the department is also going to be highly ranked. An example also is Harvard. So Harvard is ranked #1 or #2 as a university. But they do have programs in engineering that are ranked in the top 20. So it's still, again, very highly ranked department, but it might not be in the top 3 or top 5 programs. And then do you recommend contacting potential faculty advisors before the application process? So if you are applying to a PhD program, part of creating your list of schools is also identifying 1, 2, or 3 professors whose research aligns with your research interests. And so you want to make sure to read about what they're currently doing research on, and also reaching out to them to introduce yourselves. And so you definitely want to be specific about why you're reaching out to them, how their research aligns with yours. Now you want to be careful when reaching out to professors. Sometimes they will write on their website, please don't email me, send in your application if you feel we're a good research match. So be respectful of what is on their website. But otherwise, that's also something that I can help support applicants with, is what to say when you're reaching out to prospective faculty members, How long should your email be? What are some things to attach? And when is a good time of year to reach out to prospective faculty members? But it's definitely a process that you can do if you are applying to PhD programs. If you're applying to master's programs, there's no need to reach out to professors. Other question, do you recommend 2 or 3 pages for CV for engineering PhD in the US? So the CV, typically a CV is usually longer, especially if you have a lot of research, you've attended conferences and things like that. So it's typical for a CV to be 2 or 3 pages. Usually 2 pages fits in well. For a resume, if you're submitting a resume, typically 1 page. But again, if you're applying to graduate school, it's okay for your resume also to spill onto 2 pages. If you are a reapplicant, so if you've already applied to graduate school and you weren't admitted, and then you decide again to apply this year, one of the things that admissions committees are looking at if you are reapplying to their department is they want to see what you've done between the time you've applied and the time that you're applying now. So if you've gained relevant experiences, if maybe you went back to school to take relevant courses, those are things you definitely want to highlight in when you're reapplying. Let's see. So can this be used to apply for internships as well? Absolutely. If you're applying to internships and you are required to write an essay or a cover page, you can definitely use this advice to write a cover page for an internship or a job. You definitely want to, for a job, I mean, there are differences, obviously, but if it's an academic internship or research, these are the advice I provided today could fit in that narrative as well. I've been told that a statement of purpose is where I should address any struggles or a poor GPA. How would I go about introducing and talking about weaknesses? Yes, so the statement of purpose is not necessarily where you want to do that, unless the prompt says that they want you to do that in the statement of purpose. I found that especially after COVID, a lot of schools have introduced an additional information section in their online application, or they have a specific essay prompt where you can talk about any struggles, or if there's a grade or your GPA is something you do want to address. And so you definitely want to address that somewhere in your application. And that's something that I work on with the people I coach, is where would it be most appropriate? And so if it's in your statement of purpose, we definitely want to address that from a positive, right? So maybe in your body paragraph, you write about a project you've been working on that has taken on a lot of your time, maybe that has affected your grades. You want to talk about the steps you've taken to adjust and to show that your grades you've done better, right, after that specific circumstance. So there definitely is a section in the application or in your essays where you want to address that, but you also want to make sure that you are addressing lessons learned, strengths that have come about from this experience, right? And so it's definitely a case-by-case basis. But if you do want to talk about adversities or a grade, definitely addressing it from a positive and a gross experience is important to remember. What if you've been out of school for a while and have been working in the field you're pursuing in higher? Hey, should I talk about my time in college or more relevant work experience? So this is a great question. The question is, if you have been out of school for a while Are you going to talk about your work experience, or are you going to talk about your college? Maybe you've graduated 5 years ago or even 10 years ago. What do you talk about? So you definitely want to talk about the most relevant and recent experience. If you have studied psychology, for example, in college, and then you worked in marketing for the past 5 years, but in your grad school applications, you want to go back to studying psychology, you might talk a bit about your college experience, but you might also talk about the relevant skills that you've acquired in maybe your marketing, if it's an area that relates. It all depends on if you're looking to pivot or if your work experience is really the reason why you're seeking an advanced degree. So if your work experience relates to wanting an advanced degree, then your focus is definitely going to be on your work experience and less on your college experience that might have been 5-7 years ago. Again, this is a case by case basis, and we want to make sure to look at all of your experience and how college and work experience have shaped your reasons for wanting to go to graduate school. Is coursework relevant for PhD in biology research? So certainly if you're applying to schools, a PhD program in the US, if you want to be careful, if you're applying to a PhD program, they might require you to have a master's degree already. If you're applying to a PhD program and they don't require a master's degree, the requirement for completing a PhD degree will be for you to, usually typically the first 2 years of your PhD will be coursework. So you do have graduate level foundation coursework. So they do want to see that you have had that foundation coursework in college and or graduate work. If you don't have graduate level classes, you will be completing those at the doctoral level. So coursework is relevant, but they also want to see that you have relevant and recent research experience in the area of biology that you're applying to. Oh, someone said, changed my whole perspective of the statement of purpose. Well, you're welcome. I'm happy to hear that. What does it mean when a professor agrees to have you in their lab group as their PhD student? Can the admissions committee still reject such applicant, or do they reach out to the professor first? So this is an important question if you are applying to a PhD program. Part of the process, as I mentioned previously, is reaching out to prospective faculty members you're interested in working with the goal of connecting with them through Zoom call, meeting with them, talking about how your research interest aligns with theirs. Some professors might go as far as saying, I want you to be a PhD student in my lab. Yes. So that's great, but you want to be careful with that, because even though a professor really wants you to work in their lab, the admissions committee still has, they still need to review the applications. Now, part of your statement of purpose in the school specific section, if you are applying to a PhD program, you do want to mention the name or names of professors you would want to work with. Oftentimes, your essay, your application is going to be sent to those professors. But all that to say, if a professor agrees to have you in their lab, in their group, you definitely want to wait until the admissions decision comes out before celebrating, right? And so there's a lot that could happen between a professor saying they want you in their lab and the admissions decision, especially if you're applying to a PhD program. Oftentimes there are interviews, you're invited on campus, or there are virtual interviews. So there's a whole process before a decision is made. And so having the support of a professor during the application process and the review process is tremendous and can go a very long way. But hold off celebrating until you do get the official offer from the department. I think we are at time. Thank you so much again to everyone who is watching. I really appreciate your time as well. And so, as I mentioned before, this talk has been recorded and will be sent out to everyone in 2 days. So thank you again for making time.